Welcome to the Lake Lewis Jr. Show. Appreciate you joining me as always. It's Monday. It's going to be a busy week for us here on the show. And we've got a lot that we're going to break down today, because one of the things that I wanted to do today was I wanted to talk about, several things. We wanted to talk about the Commanders draft order. Obviously they only have 5 picks in this year's draft. That's not a lot compared to years past. But I think what they've done already in free agency has led some credence to what they're going to do. And I'm excited about the Washington Commanders' future, especially with Adam Peters at the helm. If you look at these draft picks, they're all going to be predicated because of what they did during free agency. So we'll talk about the remaining needs of this football team. And then we're going to break down what those needs are. Is it a linebacker? Is it a cornerback? Is it an edge rusher? Is it all of the above? Is it a running back? We're going to break down all of these things on today's show. And then I'm going to ask you, the fans, this question. And the question is, should Washington trade back or should they trade up? For instance, if there's a player there at, 28, 27, 26, 25, 24, 23 or above that Washington desperately wants, do you put something together to move up out of that 29th overall pick in the first round to get that player? Or do you trade back to secure more assets? Because remember, when we break down their draft order, they're devoid of a third-round draft pick. That pick just recently went over to the Houston Texans for Linebacker Tunsil. So, you have to think about some of these moves that have been made. So we're going to break all this down on today's show. Before we get into it, I want to let you know, if you would like to subscribe to the podcast, if you're watching this right now on YouTube and you see that red button right there, I need you to hit that button, folks. That's the subscribe button to the show. Then you'll be plugged in at all times. If you don't see that red button up there, that's because you've already done it, and I greatly appreciate that. But if you see the button up there, please press that button and subscribe to this, and hopefully this won't be the first time you've watched this or the last. Okay. You also can subscribe to the podcast via any major audio carrier such as Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Pandora, Spreaker, Deezer, you name it, it's on there. And we're building up some steam in that regard as well. And then finally, wanted to let everyone know that if you want to be on this Friday for another Friday Fan Day, it's picking up some steam. We've had a lot of different people coming on, and now they're all coming on at the same time. And last week was a first, because what we did was we brought in a fan of another team. So we had a Philadelphia Eagles fan representative came on and did a great job. He's probably going to be back on this Sunday. I'm thinking football mode here. He's going to be on this Friday again. And then I'm going to have a Bears fan who wanted to come on. He's going to be coming on. So don't be afraid. If you're not a Commanders fan, you can come on the show. It's an NFL show. I'm NFL media. So please, by all means, if you want to come on, it's open door, welcome policy. We just ask that you keep it clean, you keep it civil, and we have fun with this. People are making friends outside of this. So, I'm telling you, it's something that's really picking up steam. So let's get right into it, folks. The Washington Commanders, in the last show, I gave them an A, grade as far as what they've done as far as free agency and the 2 trades. I know those 2 trades aren't really free agency because you're not signing someone else's player, but those 2 moves were made in conjunction with free agency as far as Deebo Samuel from San Francisco and then, of course, Linebacker Tunsil from the Houston Texans. I think those 2 moves, with the moves that have been made during free agency, re-signing your key players, Bobby Wagner, Zach Ertz. You're bringing pretty much everyone back, with the exception, of course, we know John Allen's moved on. We know Jeremy Chen's moved on. We know De'Ami Brown is now in Jacksonville. But I do believe in my heart of hearts that at least 2 of those positions, the safety position as well as wide receiver, were upgraded. Deebo Samuels is an upgrade. Excuse me, I keep saying Samuels because my better half's last name, maiden name's that. Okay, so yes, Deebo Samuel is an upgrade over De'Ami Brown. There's no doubt about it. He can do more on your offense. He's more versatile. He's a Swiss Army knife. And then, of course, Linebacker Tunsil, one of the top left tackles in football, definitely one of the top 5 pass blocking left tackles, and that's something big for Jaden Daniels to protect him. Okay. So now when you look at some of the free agent moves, we talked about Jeremy Chin moving on to the Raiders. Well, I think Will Harris is an upgrade over Jeremy Chin because he's a natural safety and he's a natural guy that can cover. And that's something that, no offense to Jeremy Chin, good dude, great guy. You wish him well out in Oakland or in Vegas. But he, was limited as far as coverage skills. And I think now Will Harris is a guy that you can also move around. He can play a little bit of corner at times. He can move in the box and play strong safety and even a hybrid linebacker position. So versatility in Dan Quinn and Joe Witt Jr.'s defense is huge for anyone that was signed. But I think with all the acquisitions of, you think of Javon Kinlaw and Eddie Goldman, and you think of all the players that were signed, a lot of them are veteran players with years of experience in the league. So they're coming in trying to get that Super Bowl, trying to get past the Philadelphia Eagles. And this offseason has been off to a bang. It's been off to a great start. But now is where the meat and potatoes, the hard work, being at the combine in Indy, being at pro days, being year round, week in and week out on Saturdays, your scouting department. And I think Washington has finally become equipped under Adam Peters and Dan Quinn to be able to lead the charge and be one of the better teams as far as talent evaluation. Their draft class last year was really strong. I mean, they had guys really producing at a high level. And some of the guys that a lot of you may not even remember, the Jordan McGee's of the world and the Hamptons of the world, they're going to be significant upgrades and players this year as far as what they were last year. So their games have upgraded. They're going to be on the field a lot more, and they're going to be more viable players for the Washington Commanders. That leads me to believe that this year's draft class is going to be a good one. And yes, albeit they only have 5 picks, and as you can see right here on the screen, those 5 picks are in round 1, they have the 29th overall pick. They have in the second round the 61st pick. In round 4, the 128th pick. And in round 6, the 205th pick. And then in round 7, the 245th pick. Okay, so they don't have a lot of draft capital as far as the amount of picks, but those 5 picks can be heavy hitters if they do their homework, which I think Adam Peters clearly does. So with that being said, I wanted to talk about some of the remaining needs for this team. And I think if you look at some of the needs for the Washington Commanders now, we just talked about Will Harris, so now since you went out and you lost the safety and you gained the safety who could be an upgrade at that position, do you still want to draft a safety? So for the sake of getting this one out the way early, there's 2 safeties that I think Washington, would look really good in burgundy and gold. And that's Nick Emanwari, from South Carolina, who's just a freak athlete. I mean, the guy at the combine was just, you couldn't believe how big he was and how fast he was moving. He's a 6'4" guy, 225, 230 pounds. And yeah, that's eerily similar to somebody that used to run from sideline to sideline and patrol the deep middle of the field back in the day by the name of Sean Taylor. Am I saying that Nick is one of those guys? No, because Sean Taylor was one of one. But I think this guy, size-wise, speed-wise, athletic ability-wise, would envision that. And I think we've all been craving a really nice home run safety for the Commanders and previously the Redskins for a long time since unfortunate death of Sean Taylor. So I think he's a guy that you could look at if he's there at 29 and he's on the board. You have to contemplate that regardless of having signed, Will Harris. You still have to consider that. That's an upgrade at that position as far as potential, okay? Long-term potential. The other safety that I think you have to maybe take a look at too is Xavier Watts from Notre Dame. He's another freak athlete out there that's really smart. Kind of reminds me of another guy that came from Notre Dame, Kyle Hamilton, and we all know what he's done with the Ravens. He's just lit it up there and been a perennial Pro Bowler and All-Pro since he got to Baltimore. So those are 2 safeties, pretty much the only ones that I think I would take a hard look at. Some of the other guys out there, I think Malachi Starks is out there from Georgia. He's a good player, but he's kind of limited in coverage. If you look at the tape, which we do in this business, he's a guy that can tackle, he can hit, but the hips and the movement, things like that, that's not his strength covering guys. And I think if you're Washington, you do need someone back there. That's why they went out and got Will Harris and let Jeremy Chin go, because like I said, Jeremy Chin struggled in coverage. I think you need someone back there that can do it all. And I think, Emanwari is the guy. If you're going to go safety, he's the guy for sure. And I think that's for any team in the draft. He's that good. Other positions for Washington. I think clearly linebacker, cornerback, and edge rusher. Edge rusher might be the most important one. And there's several guys that are out there at edge rusher. I have a list right here of the guys that I like, and in no particular order, because I know everyone's going to say, well, this guy's better than that guy. I'm saying that if one of these guys is sitting on the board for Washington, and as you can see right here, James Pierce, great showing at the combine. I was there when he blazed down the track, and I couldn't believe what I was seeing. But he is a guy that some people have questioned. I hate to keep bringing this up to soil a young player, but some people have questioned character issues, and I know for a fact that that's not going to be a good thing in Washington's locker room if that is indeed the case. You like to judge people by you judging them yourself as opposed to just words from others. But I can tell you from what I can see every day being in that locker room is it's one of the best locker rooms I've ever been around. And they want to keep that, new tradition alive. They want to keep that going forward because that's, springboarded that team to the NFC Championship game. Another guy on this list, as you can see, is Shamar Stewart from Texas A&M. He's a guy that has a lot of potential, hasn't always put it together, but he's really talented, and he's long, he's strong, explosive. So I think he's a guy that could be a fit, but I don't think neither James Pierce or Shamar Stewart are going to be sitting there. I just don't. I don't think they're going to be there at 29. So perhaps they're someone you move up for if they're within reach. Michael Williams from Georgia sitting there. Jack Sawyer from Ohio State, strong guy, might be one of the strongest guys in the draft. He's a guy that can move people around, and he's got a nice motor. I think ultimately he could be a guy that moves into a starting role over time and stays there. I think he's going to be a very good professional football player. Nick Scorton from Texas A&M, that's the guy that intrigues me a lot because he's explosive, and if he can put it all together consistently, someone's going to get a steal in this draft. He's one of those guys that fits under one of my sleeper steal picks as far as this year's draft. So remember the name Nick Scorton from Texas A&M. And then the other guy, I did a post the other day about him, Mike Green from Marshall. He's explosive too. And, I always have this thing about when you play for smaller schools, the competition you go up against, weekly, is it at the top of the hill? And it's not. However, I remember what this guy was doing to Ohio State this year against two, potential first round tackles. And he was looking pretty good. And I think, when you look at his body of work, he's a transfer guy. But if you look at his body of work, he's a really good football player, and he's got a burst. And, edge rushers are premium in the NFL. You need that to attack the other team, and Washington needs one of these guys. They need an edge rusher in the worst way. So those are my 5 edge rushers that I think you should take a look at. As far as the cornerbacks, here's a list right here that I've put together. Guys that I'm going to explain this to you. The reason why I went with these 4 guys, because Dan Quinn traditionally, going back to his days in Seattle, even in Atlanta for that matter, he had big corners. That's just what he rolled out there with. And I think for him, you go back to Dallas, Trayvon Diggs, the kid Bland, he was in his second year this year. He had that great rookie campaign. They're ball hawks, and they're guys that have size on them. So for me, these 4 guys all have 6'2", 6'3". Hell, Darian Porter from Iowa State has a 6'4" frame. And we're talking about a corner here. And I think, come on, guys, think about it. And ladies, guys and ladies, think about it. 6'4", who do you put him on in the NFC East? Of course he rolls up against A.J. Brown. That's what you need. Sometimes you need big corners. Washington's got a feisty physical one already in Marshawn Lattimore. They've got another feisty and physical one in Mikey Sainristil. They just went out and got Jonathan Joseph, which was a great move as far as a veteran corner. But I think you're still looking at one in the draft, and let's just say at 29, one of these guys is sitting there. Again, let's pull up the list one more time. One of these guys sitting there, Siobhan Revel, from East Carolina, he's 6'3". Okay, Isaiah Thomas from Florida State, 6'3", a super supreme athlete on top of that. Darian Porter, like I just mentioned, from Iowa State, 6'4", and then Zy Alexander, 6'2", from LSU. All these guys are guys that I think if you're Washington, you can take a good hard look at. Some of them are second rounders. I'm just saying, if you're at 29, remember I posed a question to you, do you trade up or do you trade back? So if some of these guys are second rounders and they're sitting there at 29, perhaps you work some magic with another team and move back a couple of slots and pick up another pick along the way, and you still get one of these guys. So that's where the fun part of the draft is, and I think Washington's well equipped with Adam Peters, who knows how to play the game of chess and not checkers, which Washington was playing for years before he got to town. So now they're going to be in position to move up and create some really good draft capital. If they were to move up or if they were to move back, they've got an opportunity to make some noise, and I expect them to do so. As far as other positions of need, I think linebacker has to be looked at as well. I'm really high on McGee and Hampton, the young guys that you didn't see a whole lot last year. They're athletic, and I know Hampton came in as a safety. He bulked up. And people kept asking me, well, if they were so good, how come they weren't playing a lot? I mean, sometimes it takes rookies a year or two. Everyone doesn't just walk in off the street like Jaden Daniels and hit the ground running. Some guys, it takes time. Ben Sennett's in that category. I know he's a tight end, but he's going to be a good football player. But it takes time sometimes for guys to understand the intricacies of their position at the pro level because of the physicality of it, because of the playbook learning, because of just little nuances. And I think that those two guys are going to be good, but I still think Washington needs to potentially, if a guy was sitting there that's a really good one, I think they might need to start looking at the heir apparent, obviously, to Bobby Wagner. Bobby Wagner, I'm not throwing him under the bus yet because he still can play some great football, and he did last year. He was a Pro Bowler. That's my guy as well. But I think if you can have a Bobby Wagner and you can get a Mike linebacker, or you can get someone in that has to call plays ultimately, well, Bobby Wagner's the guy that you want teaching that to him, because that person would be tutored by a first ballot Hall of Famer at the position. So if you're Washington, there's a couple of linebackers that if they're sitting there at 29, you have to contemplate it. If they're sitting there at 61 in the second, you have to contemplate it. And here, I'm pulling up the list right here. All right, so Jalen Walker from Georgia, Jihad Campbell from Alabama, they're going to be gone. I just wanted you to see those are 1 and 2 in everyone's, on my mock drafts. They're the first two linebackers off the board. They're that good. But there's another guy that I think is really good too, and you see him on the board right here, Demetrius Knight. A lot of people don't know about Demetrius Knight from South Carolina, but let me tell you, when I talk about culture and class and just a good kid that's really good football player, that's the one right there. I mean, we're talking about a smart guy, got his degree. He does stuff. I mean, we were hearing all these things in Indy about all the good things that he does, was working to support his family. I mean, high class guy. The other thing I love about this kid was that he used to be a quarterback. So when he came into college, I think at Georgia Tech, because he's transferred, I think, to two different programs. I'm not big on kids that transfer a lot either, because that tells me they don't deal with adversity, but that's not everyone. Some guys have to because of different circumstances. And I feel like this kid has such high character and he's such a good football player. Look at who he would be learning from, a person that has such high character and is such a good football player, Hall of Famer on top of that, and Bobby Wagner. That could be a match made in heaven. And right now, while Bobby's still there, Demetrius could be a guy that plays a lot on the outside opposite Frankie Louvu on the other side of the field in 4-3 packages. So listen, in a base package, this guy could be could be hell. And he's also a pretty good guy to put some pressure on the quarterback. So it could bring a more dynamic skill set to Washington's defense. So listen, it's going to be a lot of stuff that we're going to be talking about over the next couple of weeks leading up to, the third week in April when the draft is in Green Bay. I'm not sure if I'm going to be in Green Bay yet or if I'm going to be up in Washington, but we'll find out. We'll figure all this stuff out. I'll be one of those places, giving you updates. And remember last year in Detroit, I was one of the first to actually interview Jaden Daniels. So that was pretty cool, to meet him up there and welcome him to DC, even though I was in Detroit. You get the gist. So we'll be doing a lot of that over the next couple of weeks, breaking stuff down. But as always, if you want to come on the show on Friday of this week, throughout the week, you can email me at thelakeLewisJr.show@gmail.com and let me know if you want to come on, and we'll get you on this Friday. If you need to be next Friday, that's fine as well. But once you come on, you get a little bit of it, a little taste of it, you'll want to keep coming on. And most of the guys keep coming on every week in this building. So we welcome anyone out there if you want to come on. And my female, friends, my female followers out there, we want to get some females on the show as well. So come on. You're more than welcome to come on and show the guys that you know your stuff. So to my female followers out there, definitely appreciate all your support as well. And you are welcome to come on our Friday fan show as well. So we haven't had one female come on yet, but I'm sure that's going to change real soon. Okay. All right. Got to wrap this one up. Just, me, like to drop 20 minutes on you, good hard 20 minutes of solid information. Let me know your thoughts. Remember, you can email me even if you don't want to come on the show, but you want to give me some feedback. You can comment in the comment sections right here. Remember, subscribe to the show if you haven't done so. If you haven't hit that red subscribe button, please do so. If you already have, I appreciate the love. Remember, you can also subscribe to the podcast on the audio carriers as well. So we're going to be back tomorrow, same time, same place. And as always, have a good evening. Be safe out there, and we'll see you soon. Take care.